Now, with schools reopening today for the third term and the better part of this week, well, we've been treated to a rather compressed school calendar, I should say, since September, or is it October of 2020? But then how has it been for learners, for teachers, for parents, even as they gear up for the back to school beginning today? This is what we are set to converse at this hour with my guest, that is Karira, who is a counselor. Karira, welcome to the program, Catherine.
Thank you very much, Doreen.
You're welcome. And let's just begin from that particular note. I mean, schools are reopening today, and we obviously expect that the better part of this week. We've talked about the mix-up. I should say mix-up, because I mean, just the other time when they were back at home, they were supposed to have gone back to school on Thursday. This was during the election period, but they stayed for 2 weeks because of the uncertainty as at that time. Then around, what, 3 or 3.5 weeks, again, they closed for another 1 week. Now they're going back for the third term. Really, it's been quite a mix-up for learners, teachers, parents. Just talk to me about how this has been for, you know, these key stakeholders.
Thank you, Doreen. My passion in life is to make our children know before they wish they knew. So anytime our children are not in school, I raise a concern, because like now they have come home for only a week, and children have 4 E's. They always come home very excited. They want to experiment, they want to explore, and they get exploited. So when we affect the children's schedule, we confuse them. However, that is the best that you could have done, because education is their life, and being out of school or being in school, our children are still growing. But what you need to understand as parents, as children, as the stakeholders, that even the seasons of the rains have also changed. Seasons and times are changing. So we have to make sure that even as our children get squeezed, we have to mentor them, we have to give them direction, we have to make them understand we are not doing this because we hate them, we are doing this because we want the best out of them. And we all need to appreciate what education is. The word of God, which I hold, Doreen, tells us that education is your life. Guard it very well. It is true, the children are very pressed. But again, we also see when we plant a seed, we have to bury, literally cover it with the sod or with the soil, but it will find its way out so that it can come to the sunshine, so that it can be able to grow. So the children need to appreciate that this is not a permanent situation. This is a third term. That now next year we go back to the normal schedule. However, we don't go to the normal schedule with the same children, because some now are getting out of school. And that term is very unique, because we are seeing the first class of CBC take their exam. And we also have class 8 that are taking the exam. We have the Form 4 also that are taking the exam. So we know now they have 3 national exams to be done by the same children, by we the stakeholders as the parents, and the teachers also. So what we need to do is appreciate where we have found ourselves in, and try out to squeeze the very best out of each one of us. But again, we know now that even teenagers or children are more prone to depression, and we have quite a number of them that are committing suicide. And
we'll come to that in a short while. You know, some of these effects and issues of even whatever and the kind of situation we found ourselves in, because I mean, this is where we are, so how do we adjust? But then again, we're taking cognizance of the fact that these issues are still underlying. But before we get to that, there has also been concern. Like this year alone, we talked about, what, 4 school terms? One in which we are not used to, because you're used to the 3 school terms, just being in school 10 weeks, closing for 1 week. And again, there's been that issue of fees, needing materials. Anytime they're all reopening schools, there's this materials. If it's not books, it's this. And also the CBC parents also are really bearing the brunt when it comes to this. But this issue of fees and parents and how to deal with this, because even yesterday they were complaining, and it's coming from a good, a point where I should say that their concerns are valid.
Very valid. Very valid. Because 4 terms and tight terms, and we also know that because of COVID crisis, most of us parents lost our jobs. And we also know the economy of our nation. But again, we also need to appreciate that life is not going to start because there was COVID, because there are 4 terms. What you need to do is manage with what we have. Otherwise, if we don't manage with what we have, somebody is going to be damaged. And these are the children that are more in school now. But what I want to call out there, and I know the CS of education always tells the principals, please do not chase them out because of school fees. But we also need to understand that the schools depend on the money for food and for everything else. So what you need to do is hammer and harmonize the processes so that we don't damage the school also, because they are not able to pay the people that the suppliers, and then we also don't lose the children going out. So what we need to do is come up with a working schedule. Like now, we have been home for only 1 week, and we had paid school fees, and we are paying again tomorrow. Can we be lenient, but also can we also sacrifice as parents? Because if we don't sacrifice as parents for our children, we'll be sacrificing the lives of our children. Yes. Yeah,
makes sense. But you touched on that issue of school fees, and you also equally mentioned that the education CS urging school heads not to send them back. And actually, this has been the trend, I think, since last year, trickling down to this year. But again, school heads are saying that really they're running under a tight budget, and there's this trying to draw the balance between not sending them away as per what the ministry is directing, but then again, just as you've mentioned, they have to run under a budget. So really, who's supposed to bear the responsibility of this? Because also we understand that particularly for public schools, the government has been shouldering part of the expenses.
By the way, Doreen, let me tell you, some principals really want to keep the children in school.
It's in their heart.
It's in their heart. So some, unfortunately, they have even been denying them the meals. So that's why we are calling for sacrifice from all stakeholders. So the government must be able to, because the government is bigger than all of us, they must be able to dig deeper in their pocket and see how they can cushion the schools. However, even as parents, we must be able to sacrifice, go a little mile. If we agree that I'm not able to pay today and my child is coming back, can we have a working relationship, a working plan? And then honestly, we know that we'll still have to eat. Whether we have the money, we don't have the money, we have to eat, so we have to go and sacrifice. However, we also need to agree together that we are in a crisis. But being in a crisis, doesn't make us not be able to think outside the box. When I was growing up, Doreen, people that were not able to pay school fees, we could see parents come and say, I'm not able to pay, can I do some manual work? Then that can be credited into the account of my children. What we are calling for is grace. And grace is always sufficient, so that we don't deny the school the facilitation fees, and the children, we keep them in school. Because actually for me, Doreen, the longer our children are outside of school, the worse it becomes for them. Now they are going back after 7 days. And I'm trying to tell them, as you go back, you must be very quick to adjust and also to readjust. We cannot afford to waste any time, because remember, we already have the 3 national exams that are coming with us.
How does this adjusting look like? Like, just we are saying, and we'll keep saying up at least we get to that normal school calendar beginning January of 2023. That's next year. But then this how do you employ this coping mechanisms? It's already a tall order for learners. How do you, as a counselor, what would you say?
Actually, I'm a teens youth mentor. So I normally tell them to appreciate the way life is. In a day, we have 24 hours. So if they're able to tabulate the hours they have in a term, they will be able to manage it very well. Like now, I know some on their way back to school now. Others will be going tomorrow. But if we can look back at the short holiday that we had, only 7 days, if these children could manage their time very well, because we have 24 hours, if they could take 7 hours for doing their studies, which they hardly do when they come home, if they can take that for doing their studies, then they have 7 hours to sleep. Because sleep is very important. Then they have their 10 hours that they can do their social life. And I always tell them, as they social life, they must make sure that they don't socialize their life to death. They can be able to manage themselves very well. Unfortunately today, the generation we have is a generation that we call kamama kababa. They don't have the zeal to push themselves. So we have to literally go to school with them. We have to walk the path with them. We have to tell them, yes, this is your life. That is why I began with saying, education is your life, guard it very well. How they can be able to readjust without wasting time is have a figure of who you want to be in life. When you have a goal, when you have a focused mind, you're not going to look at what else is hindering me. What you need to look is, I have a goal. So the children, as they go back to school, they have to have a goal in mind. And this goal is not only getting a grade A. They have also to have a goal of having a character. Because when they have a grade A and they don't have a good character, I call them clever devils. And actually, the Bible I'm holding today...
Well, isn't that a hashtag?
It is a good one. Because you can imagine, you have all the A's, but you don't have a character. I'm sure the reason you work here is because besides having the grades, you have a good character. You have an interpersonal relationship character with your colleagues. If they don't have the character, the market job, the world is very hostile to anybody without a good character. I was coming to the goals. If the student would be able to appreciate that education is their life, I'm not doing it for my school, I'm not doing it for my parents, neither am I doing it for the nation, I'm doing it for myself. But when I score well, my parent, the teachers, the school, and the nation will celebrate, and we'll have a better working team. This is what the word of God says, that if your goals are right, you shall be respected. But if you're looking for trouble, that is what you're going to get. So as they go back to school, their goal is what? Education. They're not going there to make friends, because I normally say, if your friends in school are not friends that can take you to another higher level, is a very expensive friend to have. Yes.
And even as we talk about those coping mechanisms, we are also very much aware of, you know, some of these issues that students are really facing in school. We talk about drugs, we talk about alcohol, teen pregnancies, and, you know, most of this emanate from, of course, the kind of environment they're coming from, looking at also how things have been tight, and the only thing that that child is thinking is, how do I get off from this? Let me just go take something. And this is now where we're having the issue of drugs and alcohol and teen pregnancies coming from school.
The three vices are now very rampant. Unfortunately, we see grown-ups here, because we see who sells the alcohol to the students, a grown-up. Who are doing the drugs? The drug barons. And you know, the drug barons, they don't do the drugs. They just sell them to us. And children, they are just children. Children have a full-time job, Doreen, that is called to play. F-U-L-L. But it can change and become F-O-O-L. So we have to know who these children are. And I'm holding my three fingers so that I don't forget. We have now the alcohol, we have addressed the drugs. But it is important for the children to know that drugs are not cool. They make them a fool. Nobody will ever succeed when they're high on weed. So the children have to know. Then we see also now that drugs do not add value. Drugs drag you down. Then we have teenage pregnancies. And it's so unfortunate, because the girl child, and that is you and myself, we are the one that face the pregnancy. The boys, they don't ever get pregnant. And I'm on record having told the boys, there's no time they'll be so full of sperms until they go, they cannot burst. And I also want to tell the girls, because the girls tell me, Madam, everybody else is saying they have a boyfriend. But Doreen, when we look at the word friend, their ed, what do we get? Ed. So the boyfriends or the girlfriends that you have will take you to an ed. Then the girls tell me, no, Madam, we are cleverer than the boys. Our boyfriends are not our peers. Either mutua duzi, ama sugar, whoever. But again, at the end of the day, it is the girl that suffers. However, parents, now we get confused, because we are fearing that our girl may go there and have sex. So we take them to the hospital, we give them the jab for contraceptives. It is important for all of us to know that sex, by the way, is not an emergency. Doreen, do you know nobody will ever die for not having sex? Did I say that?
Yeah, you said it very correctly.
So, parents, what we need to do is talk to our children, a talk I normally call a hot talk. where we are very honest, where we are very open, where we are very truthful. Talking about teens pregnancy, we cannot now put away the statistics of HIV and AIDS.
Yes.
Those figures
and in fact, the ministry right now is saying that the numbers are even going high, despite the efforts they have been making.
Yeah, they're going high every day. But now, even as the figures are going high every day, Doreen, we need to know there are other girls that are walking straight, they are walking in total abstinence. Therefore, even as we think that can we give them contraceptives so that they don't get pregnant, we also need to know that there are no contraceptives for HIV and AIDS. We also need to know, even if we have the despisers for condoms everywhere, there are no condoms for your heart, neither are there condoms for your memory. You know, as schools open, the girls cry out to me. They tell me, you know, madam, nikasikia joto na nikapeana. I normally tell the girls uspeane. So they tell me, I'm praying that my periods come. They may not come. Now that is where we get the pregnant girl. And let me say this, being pregnant is not the end of life. Actually, you've just made a baby. And this is just a girl, a child. And if you're not careful as a nation, if we don't walk right with a pregnant girl, if we don't walk right with them and hold them hand in hand, assist them to give birth, and then we must take them back to school. However, now taking back to school comes with a stigma. Because this girl, like this one I'm dealing with, she was the president of their school. And now she's pregnant. And most unfortunate, ni mtu wa mjengo. So she's telling me, madam, she has listened to me and should want to go back to school. But the parents are adamant, you go back the same school. And I want to tell parents, you cannot heal in the same environment. We need to change that. We need to know that is the destiny of this girl that is at stake. And if we don't return our girls to school, after pregnancy, after giving birth, we are going to have an economy that I normally call PMS. Poverty, money, and sex. And unfortunately, these girls, if we don't walk right with them, in the next 2 years, they'll have another baby. That is why, Doreen, I normally tell them, uspeane, hata kufa kwa kukosa sex, and every day they are dying. Remember now, we have the three. The girls are pregnant, they are taking drugs, and they have taken alcohol. Where is the boy child? Because the scars that we don't see take longer to heal. We cannot assume that our boys are okay because they are not getting pregnant. We have to reach out to them. And how do we reach out to these children? I am remembering 4 C's I have given here before. C number 1, I normally tell parents and now teachers that we must be able to connect. As our children are coming back to school now, parents and teachers, we must be super vigilant. Did you hear the word? Super vigilant. Because they want to sneak in the drugs. Because if they have been taking drugs for the last 7 days, does the eyes just die because they're coming back to school? Being that term, they want to sneak in the phone because they want to copy or steal the exams. So we must be very, very connected with them. So connected such that we are able to feel their body language. I normally say we must have now eyes that are able to hear. And after the eyes have heard, we must have those eyes that are able to see beyond the seeing. They must see the details. So that we don't have children that have come to school with drugs and mess others. Then now when we have connected, we can be able to correct them. And Doreen, we cannot correct anybody without love. Love corrects. But also we need to know correction without love is an abuse. We must love them. We must take care of them, knowing very well this is our future. Our children are our future. Then after now, we have corrected, we communicate. We help these children understand the genesis of education. You're not here because of anything else, but because of your life. Then we cooperate together in life.
All right, I hear you. Wow, this is quite... how should I put it?
As you look for the word how to put it, let me say something, Doreen.
The word is leaving my mind. But anyway, we have very few minutes to wrap up. And I wouldn't want us to exit this stage without talking about that transition. We understand that, as you talked about, there are 3 sets of learners who will be doing their final exams, of course, Class 8, Form 4s, and also Grade 6. That is for the CBC. And yes, we know there's still this conversation surrounding, you know, this kind of curriculum. And yes, the President talked about the tasks task force. So I'd just like to get your quick thoughts in respect to this. I mean, these learners that are just at the tail end of doing their final exams, and here we are trying to really rethink about this new system. What do you make of all this?
Competent-based curriculum, very good. But I always feel like, are we ready there? Because I'm imagining, Doreen, the person that is doing their grade 6, they are 12 years. Next year, they'll be 13 years. And they transit into a junior secondary school, and the Form 4 there is going to be 17 years. And unfortunately, Doreen, it is sad, let me say it, that our schools have become a den of immorality. As we talk now, there is a lot of gayism, a lot of lesbianism, and they say it is my right, it is my orientation. Therefore, as we take a 13-year-old child in that high school, we have to either have talked to our children very well, or even made a mini school inside the bigger school. We have to protect these children. That transition, yes, I would want to say we are not seeing it very well. And also, let's agree together that we are not all equal. I know some of them have swimming pools in their school, but Doreen, I get worked up when I see our children swimming on the floor. They are, yeah, it is CBC, but again, can we be able to agree together?
Yes.
It is competent-based very well, but again, this is human life. We cannot damage them because they're not panel beating for children. Yes, I know it's the first class, but again, let us be so ready for them. Otherwise, we break children. Because you can imagine 13-year-old boy or girl in a very hostile environment. What have we done? 13-year, some of them are just entering into adolescence. And then we take them away from the parent. So by the time they are coming back, the parents will not be able to relate with them because they never walked through with them for adolescence. Yes, please.
Well said. I mean, and clearly there's quite a lot to converse around this issue, particularly just from what you've raised. But due to the constraints of time, we have to cap it at this point. Thank you so much for your time, Catherine. Quite insightful, even with just the advice you've given, children as they go back to school, as well as parents, and also how to navigate, this tight, difficult times. Asante sana.
Karibu.
I have been speaking to Catherine Karira, who is a counselor, of course, just talking about matters back to school, as well as the constraint, difficult times that parents have had, and basically how learners, teachers, and parents can navigate all this as they head over for the last term of this school calendar. Good place to end this conversation, and ultimately, good morning, Kenya. Asante sana on behalf of the entire team. Till tomorrow, have a good morning.